Hi, I'm Femi Oke.
I'm Malika Bilal, and you're in the stream. Today, South Korea's in political crisis.
Will a presidential scandal spark quite a change?
I
will step down from my position according to the law once a way is formed to pass on the administration in a stable manner. I will leave to Parliament everything about my future, including the shortening of my term.
A major corruption case could bring down South Korean President Park Geun-hye. Longtime confidant Soon-sil and several aides have been indicted, and Park is accused of being an accomplice. Che allegedly exploited her presidential ties to benefit her family and extort millions of dollars from South Korean corporations. She's also said to have played a hidden role in Park's decisions, including foreign policy, political appointments, and even her wardrobe.
The controversy has led to South Korea's largest ever protests, with crowds approaching 2 million in the capital, Seoul.
This is actually my first time. I feel very proud now, and I will continue to join more rallies whenever possible.
We will continue to participate because we know that the president is hoping that we will eventually give up.
Even if Park is impeached, that might not stop the uproar. Many young Koreans say the scandal has unleashed discontent with a system that benefits a privileged few in government, education, and business. This suggests South Korea could be poised for changes beyond unseating a president.
Joining us to talk about all of this, we have Nathan Park. He's a lawyer and commentator on Asian politics. Suki Kim is an author and contributing editor to the New Republic magazine. Se-won Koo is managing editor of Korea Expose. Unsun Park, director of Listen to the City and Activism Collective. So good to have you here, everybody. Good morning to our guests in South Korea. I salute you for getting up so early. Se-won Koo, I'm looking here at your Twitter feed. Leader of Korea faces impeachment but still has fans. Tell me about the president's fan club.
Well, the president is somebody who's really seen as an heir to her father, General Park Chung-hee, who ruled South Korea as the longest ruling dictator of South Korea from 1961 to 1979. There are people here who believe that this leader, Park Chung-hee, really should be credited with bringing South Korea to the state of economic development that we see today. So as a result, President Park has really benefited from that aura, and that is really the reason why she has been elected. And there are people here who believe that she has essentially been framed by the nation, by the public, and even by the polling organizations that she did mistrust someone close to her, but this really should not be seen as her fault, and she really should not be impeached at all tomorrow.
Nathan?
Well, that would be, but we got to make clear that's 4% of the population. It might be a statistical error at this point.
So her approval rating is around about 4%.
Right, it's the lowest in modern Korean history. But Se-won is absolutely correct about this one point about how the current President Park, much of her political capital depends on sort of nostalgia for her father's rule as a dictator. And that sort of is a main separation line between Korea's conservatives and Korea's liberals.
Though I have to stop you there because you said nostalgia for a dictator. How do you reconcile those two things?
Right, that's a kind of a strange, it might sound strange, but basically, especially Korea's conservatives have this sort of a hand-wavy attitude towards dictatorship, thinking that, well, at least the elder President Park developed Korean economy, delivered us from hunger, and does it really matter that we vote every 5 years? And that sort of attitude has continued down to the moment when this current president was elected. So the most remarkable thing for me is not just the fact that Korea's liberals turned on the current president, that was to be expected, but the extent to which Korea's conservative have completely turned on her, except for that tiny faction of fans that Se-won just mentioned.
So you both mentioned, you and Se-won mentioned the turning on her, and why that happened is what our community online wants to share. So this is Pauline Park. She mentions the advisor. Se-won, you mentioned that maybe the president has put her trust in someone she shouldn't have. This person says it was that person who had a pernicious and illicit influence on President Park, wielding influence behind the scenes as Rasputin did. So a huge analogy right there. Terminate by Pauline. Pauline, but there's another person who picks up on that same theme. This is a video comment we got from someone who feels similarly. Have a listen.
Park Geun-hye transferred her constitutional right to the fortune teller Choi Soon-sil. Choi Soon-sil is not that a qualified person. She has no authority. However, she has been acted as a person in power. It's totally unacceptable. So, if I have silenced this time, this country, my mother country, will be collapsed. So, I go out to the street.
So Sookie, he calls what some would say an advisor to the president. He calls her a fortune teller. What is this connection? What was this relationship that has so many people upset?
Well, I mean, I think the fact that Choi Soon-sil was not a classified person and had also been around since the time of Park Geun-hye, the father of the current president. I think that relationship that the public did not know anything about going on for decades, and that woman having had such a power over Park Geun-hye for years, there's a deception. But I think that more disturbing is the fact that this sort of a hidden power was in existence for decades. So what that harkens back is the fact that this corruption or this rotten core really goes back to Park Geun-hye time. And I think that's waking people up to the fact that, we have this shell of a democracy, facade of democracy, and yet the dictatorship that never, in a way, ended. We're seeing the naked face of that through this woman who's been hiding behind Park Geun-hye this whole time, sort of controlling her. So I think there's a deep sense of betrayal and in some way, sort of shame about having made this woman into that nostalgia, sort of being roped into that nostalgia to bring that woman into this presidency. I think that there's sort of a self shame or hatred or something to that. Because after all what South Korea went through Park Chung-hee's military dictatorship for basically 2 decades, years later, here we have his daughter in power. How did that happen,
Onsun, go ahead. What do you want to say?
Also, actually, in Korea, it's really difficult to get in the university. But Choi Soon-sil's daughter, she got entered the university without proper procedure. But that makes people really angry also. So this is kind of evidence that Korean society is not healthy at all, and then social justice is just broken. And how come just 1 or 2 people dominating the president behind of her? That's not really democratic at all. That's why people got angry. That even young people go out street to scream about their right. Also, this is, yeah.
It's interesting, Onsun, that you mentioned the case of a daughter getting into a university that might have taken a place away from someone else who was equally or more qualified. That's something our community here online has also mentioned. Another case that they are bringing up, I'll move over to this tweet. So this is one about the student. Another one says, Samsung gave huge support to Ms. Choi's daughter, and the president made policies for big companies in return. Nathan, what is Samsung, that company, what does that have to do with this?
Well, Samsung's case is quite remarkable because this Choi Soon-sil person tapped into every major Korean corporation, but Samsung took initiative, as it were, and it's the only major corporation that gave money directly to Choi Soon-sil. Samsung basically figured out that so ordinarily the Blue House under Choi Soon-sil's order the Blue House told the corporations to donate into these foundations that were truly owned by Choi Soon-sil, but at the time it was not known. But Samsung basically figured this out and paid Choi Soon-sil directly, which is something quite remarkable. And
now, why would that then be bad for the president as opposed to being bad for her confidant? Because surely it's the confidant that should be under the microscope rather than the president. Explain that to me.
Because it's not simply that the conflict. It is a problem if a private person like Choi Soon-sil essentially captures Blue House and orders presidential chiefs and aides to basically privatize presidential power to give orders to private corporations, and that's a serious issue.
There was a remarkable parliamentary.
Samsung
Go ahead,
is really bad because they banning labor union. Can you believe that? Samsung company is the biggest company in Korea and well-known, multinational corporation, but they banning labor unions. A lot of people got killed during their working at the factories while they're making phones. So more than 72 people got killed. They died by leukemia in Samsung
complete
company.
the circle for me then. Complete the dots. Join the dots. Connect that back to President Park. So
let me talk a little bit more. So the person who died from the leukemia, her family got paid $4,000, but Samsung paid to the Choi Soon-sil more than $3 million to Choi Soon-sil. So I mean, but during there they give the tax, the money to Choi Soon-sil the family. Actually, the money came from tax evasion. So Samsung is doing a lot of tax evasion. The size is really huge, but the Samsung is dominating the medias and newspapers and everything. So it's really the correlation between the politics and the economic is really, really deeply rotten and connected. So this case is not just showing how, the collapsing of democracy. Also, this is showing how Korean economy is not that healthy.
So let me just show our guests and our audience this picture here. This is from the Korea Herald, and it's one of the many pictures that I've seen over the last few weeks about people protesting in the street. Sae-wong, is this a revolution that's happening in South Korea? Are we watching a peaceful revolution happening right under our noses?
Well, I know that there have been people who have been comparing what's happening in Korea to, let's say, the Arab Spring in the Middle East. But in fact, in Korea, we have a long tradition of people taking to the streets to make demands to the government. And the last time we had a big demonstration like this was actually in 2008 under a different president. What is happening is certainly very big, but it is in continuation of a long tradition that is in place here in South Korea. What is striking about the protest that's going on now is just to what extent it's really politicizing and energizing the electorate. There have been a lot of people in South Korea who are very angry about the state of the country. There is a great sense that inequality is a problem that is growing, and that the president Park Geun-hye has been pursuing policies that are really meant to repress democracy. But at the same time, as a result of this scandal, we are seeing a lot of people coming to the streets, and especially I have been struck by just how many young people are coming out. And we're talking about people as young as middle school students and high school students who are very political. They are very aware of what is happening here in South Korea today. And they have come to the realization that this is not a free and fair country where you can earn things or you can succeed on the basis of your own merit or your own effort. It's a country that is entirely governed by connections that you might have to the elites. And Choi Soon-sil is a really interesting example of how a person who has simply the right connection to the president without any qualification can make so many decisions that impact so many people here in this country.
I think that's exactly right.
Okay.
So
Right.
I hear,
And also-
Sae-wong, I heard what you said about why people went out to the streets, but you tweeted that you're going to be on the show today, and you got this tweet back in response, and I'm actually going to pass it over to Suki. Pavni has a question. She says, who are the biggest benefactors of the protests, and are there concerns of North Korea exploiting this instability? So it seems like there's some question within that question, Suki. Is there a thought that this isn't necessarily genuine? All the people we see out in those pictures aren't all there on their own free will? Is there some engineering behind the scenes?
Well, I mean, there's definitely engineering behind the scene. It's a political protest, no matter how polite it looks and how passionate it looks. I think that what Sae-wong was saying was interesting. I mean, what Eun-sun also just said. I think this whole thing is fascinating because it's really tapping into so many different. It's pressing buttons with Koreans, right? There's a whole education corruption, which Koreans are 100% literacy. It's an incredibly educated masses. So, and also it's a social media connected, like no other country in the world. So all these people are really aware and involved. So I think that that's also part of this scandal. Why so many people are out, young people out of the street, because it's such a heavily connected, internet-wise country, and also educated country. Another thing with North Korea, though, I mean, I don't know if this is a vulnerable time because of North Korea. I think that certainly when Park Geun-hye is gone and left takes over, that's great news for North Korea. You know, I mean, I think that as far as North Korea goes, it's always sort of a status quo. It's the same thing over and over and over again. I don't think it's a vulnerability that way. This scandal, however, the protests we're seeing, what it's to me personally, you know, I spent time, you know, my last book was North Korea. I spent time living in North Korea undercover. I mean, people are, it's almost like this scandal is like monarchy on some level. You know, there's a king and there's this, you know, gruntled masses, and which is kind of how it's done. You know, it's shocking. It's interesting to notice that there's Park Geun-hye, who's the daughter of the Cold War era Park Chung-hee, and in North, it's Kim Jong-un, who's, you know, inherited the nation from his grandfather and the grandfather. So we've had this sort of offsprings of the Cold War era leading on either side of the country. And, you know, North Korea people are not speaking up, but they can't. But South Korea, you know, millions of people on the street. I mean, there's something sort of mirror situation of two Koreas almost looking similar on some level.
Guess I'm really curious about what you think about this headline from the Los Angeles Times. It's here on my laptop. South Korea finally has its first female president, but women's groups fear she's only made sexism worse. Now, Sae-won.
Yeah.
Could this scandal have happened to a male president? Or are people pointing to it because, you know, it's our first woman president of South Korea? That's why this is happening. Are you hearing misogyny? Could you even detect it?
I think there is certainly misogyny here on the ground. For example, when I went to the first anti-Park Geun-hye protest that was taking place, there was one of the very prominent progressive presidential contenders who were speaking out, and he was referring to the president and her friend Choi Soon-sil as these women or these housewives who really should not belong in politics, who should be taking care of household affairs. And the assumption that he was making was that to some level that women really should not belong in high-level governance. And actually in South Korea, we have a saying here that when a hen, a female chicken is crowing, then that's a sign that the nation might collapse.
Oh,
So there has
okay.
always been a bias against women.
Yeah.
And many
So
people
in
actually
Korea
saying,
now, yeah, as Seung said, this is a really big problem in Korea now at the moment at the big demonstrations. I'm an activist also concerning about the sexism as well, because people accusing her she's doing bad job because she's a female. That's not fair at all, because, you know, she was a part of dictatorship for many years. So she is a dictator. She is not a good person, but some people voted for it and she got a job. But she did a bad job not because of her. She's a female. She simply had a very wrong qualification. She was just wrong with her political agendas. That is the point. But a lot of people saying that reaching around her.
I want to step in
this.
with that.
Sorry.
Actually, can I just jump in? I think that it's important to notice somehow Park Geun-hye being a woman was looked at as sort of sign of feminism out in the world, but this woman was voted in because she was she practically grew up in the Blue House in front of the public's eyes as the first daughter. When her mother was assassinated, Park Geun-hye stepped in as the first lady. So she was both the wife and the daughter to the public, and that's why she got to where she did. So in a way, it's the opposite of feminism.
That's exactly right. And in the obviously, it's very unfair to draw conclusions like this. But the manner in which Park Geun-hye committed her delegation of power, as it were, is not helping, certainly, because think about the narrative of what's happening here. She was so feeble-minded that she had to rely on her confidant shaman, fortune teller, to because she was not mentally strong. There are all these little things about how she was spending time getting little anti-aging injections, for example. These are all facts, and we can look away from it. But the fact that she has committed this scandal in this manner certainly doesn't help in the eyes of the public, who are ready to make sexist.
But also, Nathan, can I just interrupt with you? I mean, also, Nathan, I think that somehow this narrative of fortune teller or shaman is another thing that is actually not true. You know, Choi Soon-sil is not a shaman or a fortune teller. The woman just is basically the sort of the one who's in the background. You know, you say in any government, you know, when you have a president, there would be, you know, some sort of a power in the back that, you know, people who kind of support that presidency financially or whatever connection they use. You know, we have that in the United States.
I don't think I can agree with that. I mean, like Choi Soon-sil herself may not be a shaman, but the way in which she got to the power was through her father, who was certainly a cult leader.
But that's the father.
There's some problem with just focusing with.
Let me just bring in Sewon. Sewon, go ahead.
So just to respond to Nathan, I mean, is this really about Choi Soon-sil inheriting the powers of her father, which is the claim that has been made? But rather, we have to think about what a lonely woman President Park Geun-hye is in South Korea. If you think about the fact that she lost her parents, both her parents, to assassination, she has no discernible friends, she's estranged from her siblings, and she has very few people she relies on. And I don't think the fact that she relied on Choi Soon-sil really speaks to the power or supernatural power that Choi Soon-sil might wield, but it's simply the fact that this is a woman who has been very close to the president for a very long time. And this president happens to be someone who is deeply isolated, perhaps more than anybody else that we have seen in the political scene in South Korea until now.
That's a very fair point.
I'm very sorry, but I think I wanted to focus on more other stuff because Choi Soon-sil is not core of this happening, these events. Because Choi Soon-sil is just fear, but the point is I'm participating in demonstration all the time because people get angry, not just because of Choi Soon-sil, but there is such a big disparity in the society. Only 5% of women in the higher jobs. And if you wanted to marry and you need the house, but we cannot afford it. So many people, my friends, they just stopped. They cannot get married. And myself,
so are you saying that all of those people, those 2 million people in the streets, it's not about the president's conduct? It's more about the structure of South Korea right now. They're protesting about life in South Korea, not about the president.
I don't think that's the case,
also,
actually.
I mean, this is also, of course, this is about presidential, but the changing the king is not the point. We have to change the structure. So disparity in society.
I just want to jump in there because I want to get one last comment from online. So you says it's not about changing the king or the president in this matter, it's changing the structure. Ritu says, does the opposition have enough support to then proceed to do what you said and change that structure, Won-sun?
Opposition all the time, we don't have power much compared to people have to have really power and resources, but we have to build the power. That's the problem with any countries. That's the problem of US and all the countries. So I think there are many smart people in this country. I hope we can build more, but there are many people are concerned about, and we, a lot of activists and elites or students are concerning about that, and we are planning for better future now,
Won-sun, Park, it's a good place to put a pause on our conversation. We are taking you online with Sewon Koo, Suki Kim and Nathan Park, and you, our online community and TV viewers as well. If you can make it, we'll be at stream.aljazeera.com. Our hashtag is #AJStream. Tweet Malika right now, and you could be in that conversation too. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care. Hello, this is our online post show. Thanks to all of our guests for coming back. What time is it right now, Suki? Look at your watch. Tell me, what time is it right now?
I think it's what is it? It's 5 a.m.
Could you have a conversation that smart at 5 a.m.? I don't think so. Guests, thank you so much. There's something I want to move us on to is I think all the indications are that President Park will not be President Park for that much longer, or she won't have that much authority. But what happens next? What is the opposition like? What's the state of the opposition like, Sewong?
Well, right now the opposition is at least for the time being united in trying to impeach the president, and it looks like they're going to succeed tomorrow afternoon at about 3 p.m. But of course, their eyes are already on the next prize, which is who's going to be the next president of South Korea, and they're all floating different candidates at the moment. And they're really focusing their energy on making sure that their candidate is going to win the election, which is expected to take place probably in June of 2017.
Right.
You know, Sewong, you said that people are, the opposition at least, is united right now in this one goal. There's someone on Twitter who thinks the whole nation, except for maybe that 3%, 4%, is united also in that goal. This is Park on Twitter who says, I think it unifies the country in a really odd way. The contempt for politicians in general is really skyrocketing. Another person chimes in who says, this will be the most important time after President Park is impeached, as though it is definitely going to happen. The impeachment will change the dirty politics by the ruling party. Nathan, do you think that is enough to change politics in impeaching one person?
It's right now. It's not just about impeaching one person. It is a month has passed, and right now, what's happening is every corner of society, every corner of Korean society is almost revealing these dark little corners where privatized power just ran the economy, ran school, ran college admissions, all these little things out of presidential fiat. So I think this impeachment really will mean something greater than just replacing one person. It does awaken the whole society as to the fact that this is going on while the society is being not transparent, and it will make Korean people strive for greater transparency.
You say
Yeah,
that.
if I may jump
Yeah,
in there,
please.
actually, I think Nathan just made a great point, which touches on what Eun-sun was saying earlier. So listen, when everybody looks at South Korea, they think this is a shining democracy where things follow the rules, and if people demand things, that and it will happen. But that is actually not the case, and this is exactly what the Soon-sil / Park Geun-hye scandal has shown us. That when you look at the elite circle in South Korea, they're all connected and they're all doing things behind the back of everybody else. And really, to get power in this country is not really through the democratic process, but to rely on these private channels. And it just so happens that with the President Park Geun-hye being in power, it was this one particular woman who was monopolizing that connection. But even with other leaders who may take power in the future, is this culture really going to change in the future? And there are doubts as to whether there will be any meaningful change even after President Park Geun-hye is impeached. And this is about how the businesses, big companies do things in South Korea and how they rely on politicians to do their biddings. And at the same time, politicians rely on the companies to basically pay them off. And this is a real problem in South
Seung made
Korea
a really
today.
good point.
So guys, I just want to show you this. I'm sure you've been following that this week, but it's the parliamentary hearing of major South Korean companies. There was an exchange that my jaw was dropping. I just want to share it with you. I want to get a sense of what the atmosphere is like in South Korea right now. Have a look at this.
Samsung Electronics sent money to Germany. Who approved it?
I don't know exactly who did it. I'll look into it.
Are you the vice chairman of Samsung?
Yes, I am.
How about handing over management to a professional businessman who has better memory and knowledge?
If there's an excellent person, I will willingly hand over management.
Dripping with sarcasm. And this is a major CEO of a major global company. I'm just thinking, Unsun, is there an atmosphere right now in South Korea which is we need to clean house?
I mean, you will probably not see my poster behind me.
Yeah.
Actually, I sued Samsung over dam construction. They did a bribery to the dam, but they owed the government. They have to pay, the money, like 7 billion Korean dollar, but they didn't pay off because there was a coalition between Jail Fabric and Samsung Engineering.
All right, so
And
I'm going to keep it for our international audience so that we can understand this. The atmosphere in South Korea right now, Sae-won, is it combative? Is it like we want a clean house?
Well,
Yeah,
I think
it's true.
everybody
Yeah,
who was
I mean-
watching the hearing at the National Assembly yesterday with all the heads of the top 8 corporations in South Korea showing up, they were all laughing because all these CEOs show up and they're deflecting questions left and right. And the point that was shown on video was really interesting, right? Everybody's wondering how is it possible that these families get to continue to control these major companies like Samsung, which have become global brands, but somehow they use very questionable means to continue to hand over power from one generation to another, and they can show up at the National Assembly, which represents the people, and still kind of laugh about it and engage in sarcasm. And this is, of course, in raising lots of people here in South Korea today. But what can be done about this? This has been the culture in South Korea ever since President Park's father was in charge. So it's going to take a very long time to change this tradition and to come up with any meaningful solution to the problem.
I think I think that's exactly true. I think that what we're seeing is obviously the dissatisfaction and against of the establishment, and people's dissatisfaction with the establishment. And I think we do have to remember Korea is a 5,000-year-old monarchy past, and this democracy is a pretty a new thing in a way. So this is in a way sort of finding its road to that, I think. Because those old system, and also, people really also revere this big Chaebol families as well. The way they voted Park Geun-hye in, those 9 guys who were at the hearing yesterday, who have controlled the country financially for decades, there is sort of a worship for them in some way, for the nobility. So I think that though is sort of changing, and what we're seeing with all these people coming out. And also one really interesting that happened at the hearing yesterday, the National Assembly hearing, one of the key evidences was actually discovered by people using the internet to look for evidence. So actually people also got involved in the whole process. And I think that people being involved in it is sort of giving strength to the average person. And I think that's a really remarkable thing about this protest.
I just want to make a very quick point about one thing that Suki raised that was a really good point about how there used to be this reverence and not anymore, because like we touched upon earlier, the current president's political capital, much of it is based on sort of this nostalgia for the past, for the great man president that her father was. And really the most interesting part to me is how even Korea's conservatives completely turned on her. And I think it happened in large part because Park Geun-hye basically destroyed the image of what her father used to be. She was considered to be this a woman without family, the woman who was married to the country, no possibility of a nepotism or privatization of power, and she was considered this sort of an upright person who can handle managing the country. And that's sort of the Korea's conservatives' mantra about how this great, almost like a philosopher king, can manage a country. And this scandal happens where it's just the gross privatization of power, where she doesn't even, and I do think this is where sort of the fortune telling angle matters a little bit, at least, that it's not as if she relied on someone great and wise, it's just a random person. random
It's not
private
exactly
person?
a random person. I challenge that. It's very connected all the way through her
certainly not.
family
She's
history.
not- she's certainly
she
not
didn't
random.
pick anybody in the street.
That's fair enough.
All right.
That's
all
fair
right.
enough.
But guests, thank you so much for the conversation. Appreciate it greatly. Malika.
You mentioned that loss of reverence. I want to end with a video comment we got from one person who might embody that. This is Iceland, and this is what she told the stream.
I participated last Saturday candle lighting rally. We are very disappointed at her because she must serve the country but she didn't. Especially her friend who first listened leader's daughter decided official duties instead of the president. We can't believe her anymore. This Friday, members of the National Assembly will vote about impeachment. And most of South Korean, at least 2.3 million, want past impeachment. We want justice for the future.
She says she wants justice for the future. Here's another person who says how that might happen. JB says South Korea is a dynamic society. Our hard-earned liberal democracy took a beating, but it will prevail. It always has. Our thanks to our guests and to our community for joining this conversation. We'll see what happens. See you online.